So the first thing you should see is this right here. The first equation is 4x plus y equals 0. All right. If you were going to do what this person said on the video, you're making a t-chart with x on the left and y on the right. What you end up doing is you make x 0, figure out what y is. Then you make y 0, and you figure out what x is. So go ahead and make that little table. This is actually an interesting problem. And when you solve this one, it's interesting. It's not quite like all the other ones that you're going to do. So if I make x 0, that makes this 4 times 0. What is 4 times 0? 0. And then it just tells you what y is. Y would equal what? It just says y equals 0. So when you make x 0, you get that y is also 0. Now what if I made y 0? What's 0 divided by 4? It's still 0. So look at this. We only have 1 point right here, and it's at 0, 0. They're the same. The first point and the second point are the same. You can't graph that point twice. You've already got a point there. So what do? This is the graph of y equals 0. Okay? So when you have that graph and your y is 0, you can just make all your y's 0. And then you can plot these points. So how do you graph 1, 0? You go over 1, up 0. You go over 2, up 0. You go over 3, up 0. So your line is actually going right here. That's a weird one. That's not going to be like the rest of them. We'll talk about the rest of them. So we're going to actually focus more on number 2 because this is going to be like more like what you just watched. So make a t-chart. X goes on the left, y goes on the right. You're going to make x 0 and y 0. That's how you start all of them. When you make x 0, it's like you're plugging in a 0 where x is. So what is 10 times 0? 0. So what you have left is negative 3y equals negative 15. All you have to do is solve that little equation. So I'm going to divide by negative 3, divide by negative 3. What is a negative divided by a negative? So what number would that be? 5. This is our first point right here, 0, 5. So let's go ahead and graph that. We're going to go over 0 and up 5 and make our first point. You have to have 2 points to make a line. Right now we only have 1 point. So we need to figure out what happens when we make y 0. When you make y 0, this negative 3y goes away. It disappears. So we would be left with 10x equals negative 15. What do I need to divide by? And what's negative 15 divided by 10? Negative 1.5. So let's graph this point. You put your pencil at 0, 0. You want to go negative 1.5, which is right in between negative 1 and negative 2, and you don't want to go up or down anything. So now I have got my 2 points. I am going to connect those 2 points with a line. I'm cheating because I have an actual line on my computer, but you just need to draw a line. I missed it. Let's see. Nope, I can move it. Why did you walk by Leo? Okay, well, he'll come back if he needs help. All right, that's your answer to number 2. You need to draw a line with your ruler or straight edge or binder or whatever you have. Okay, now we're going to move on. We're going to do number 3. This one is x plus y equals -3. So we're going to start by making a t-chart with x on the left and y on the right. We're going to make x 0, and we're going to make y 0. You need to go ahead and write that on your paper. So when I plug in a 0 for x, it's like you say y plus 0. You don't have to say plus 0. I've told you guys this a lot of times, but like you go to McDonald's and you order what you want, you don't have to tell them everything you don't want at the end. Like, I want a McChicken and 0 Cokes and 0 McFlurries and 0 this and 0 that. Like, that would take forever. Same thing in math. If you have y plus 0, you aren't required to say plus 0 at the end of it. So that just turns it into y equals -3. Y equals -3. Now you're going to make your y 0, and that would give you the exact same answer, except for instead of y equals -3, it's going to be x equals -3. Now we just need to plot these points. So start with your pencil on 0, 0, or the origin. You're going to go over 0 and down 3, making a point right there. Over 0, down 3, make a point. Put your pencil back at 0, 0. The next point is you go left 3 and you don't go up or down anything. So here's that point right there. Once you have 2 points, you have enough to make a line that goes through those 2 points, and you're done. Okay, now we're looking at number 4. This one is a little bit different. We actually learned how to graph this one yesterday in class. I'm going to start with a t-chart, but it's going to be a little different. The reason this one's different is because it only has one letter in it. It doesn't have an X and a Y. It just has an X. So under X, what number am I allowed to put? A 5. That's the only number I'm allowed to put under X because it tells me X is 5. But on Y, what number can I put? Any number you want. You obviously want to choose something that's going to fit on your graph, so nothing bigger than 6. So I'm just going to choose 1 and 2. I just picked those numbers. You get to pick whatever numbers you want. Now we're going to graph that. So put your pencil at 0, 0. To graph the point 5, 1, we're going to go over 5, up 1. Put your pencil back at 0, 0. To graph 5, 2, you go over 5, up 2. And now we've got 2 points, which is enough to connect to make a line through it. Moving on to number 5. We are going to start with a t-chart because if I look at this problem, I notice that I have an X and a Y, which means it's in standard form, which means I'm going to do this little t-chart. So everybody start by doing that. When I make X 0, 7X actually goes away. So you're left, if 7X goes away, you're left with 2Y equals -10. That's a one-step equation, a 6th grade math standard. All I have to do is divide by 2 on both sides, and what number would I end up getting for Y? -5. We're actually going to go ahead and graph that point right now, so put your pencil at 0, 0. We're going to go over nothing, but we do have to go down 5 and make a point. Okay, now we're going to plug this 0 in for Y. So when you do that and you plug in a 0 right here, it's actually 2 times 0, which is 0. So in that case, you're left with 7X equals negative 10. This one is going to be a little bit more work because it's not as easy of a problem. So take negative 10 divided by 7. Just round your answer to the nearest tenth. Yeah. All right, so when you get a decimal like this, a lot of people don't understand how to graph them, but you just do the best you can. Obviously, we don't know exactly where negative 1.4 is, but I know where negative 1 is, I know where negative 2 is, and I know negative 1.4 is almost to negative 1.5, so I'm just going to put a dot like kind of halfway in between these two. And I have 2 points now. So I can connect those 2 points and I can make my line through them. There we go. We're going to do one more together. We're on number 6. If you look and you notice that, hey, I have an X and I have a Y, I need to do that T-chart where I have X as 0 and Y as 0. So I'm going to start with my T-chart, and I put a 0 under X and a 0 under Y, and now I'm going to plug those numbers in. When I plug in a 0 for X, the X goes away. So it's left with negative 2Y equals negative 6. What do I need to divide by to get that answer? Negative 2. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. So what's 6 divided by 2? 3. We're going to go ahead and plot that point right now. Put your pencil at 0, 0. You're not going to go over anything because your X is 0. And you're going to go up because your Y is 3, positive 3. You've got 1 point. You need to have 2 points to make a line. So we're going to now make Y 0, which when you make Y 0, it just gets rid of negative 2Y. And it actually just tells you what X is. You don't have to solve it at all. X is just negative 6. So we're putting our point at 0, 0 on our graph, and it's telling us to go to the left 6, and we don't have to go up or down anything. Now I've got my 2 points. I'm going to connect those 2 points with a line. Just an FYI, you guys, this is called your X and your Y intercepts. Your Y-intercept is where your line crosses the Y-axis, and your X-intercept is where your line crosses the X-axis. So these things, the way you graph this is doing your X and your Y intercepts, actually. All right. When you turn your paper over, you only have one that is very similar to number 4. Number 9 says Y equals 5. So when you do that, you don't do it like all the other ones. You make your T-chart, and the only number you're allowed to put underneath Y is a 5. Then you get to pick what number you choose for X. So on number 9, really quickly, start with your T-chart. X goes on the left, Y goes on the right. The only number you're allowed to put underneath Y is 5 because it says Y is 5. Then you get to pick whatever number you want for X. I'm just going to choose 1 and 2. And then you graph this point and this point. If your number has nothing in front of it, like it just says Y, what am I allowed to put in front of it? A 1 if you want to. So what is required of you today is you're going to finish the back side of this worksheet. We're going to see how long it takes to see if we have time to do our last thing. I'm not sure. So you're going to finish the back side of the worksheet, and then we'll see what we have time for.